Prime Minister Narendra Modi has landed in China. This is his first visit in 7 years. Prime Minister Modi is on a 3-day visit to China. He will attend the Shanghai Cooperation Organization or SCO summit in Tianjin. But amid the tariff trouble, all eyes are on Prime Minister Modi's one-on-one meetings or maybe a trilateral. Of course, there's a one-on-one meeting scheduled with Chinese President Xi Jinping. A trilateral is also expected to be on the cards with the Chinese President and the Russian President Vladimir Putin. It is not just we in India who are totally focused on Prime Minister Modi's meeting with the Chinese President and the Russian President, but the world's attention is now focused on these meetings. Prime Minister Modi's meeting with Xi is scheduled for Sunday, that is on Sunday, before he attends the SCO summit on Monday. President Putin will be visiting India in December, and all these is surely going to raise a lot of tension in Washington, D.C. The temperatures are expected to go up there in the US, while India goes shaking hands with China and Russia. On one hand, we have Trump and his advisors adopting a belligerent approach towards India, and on the other hand, India is engaged in quiet diplomacy. In fact, it's no longer quiet, it's all out loud out there. Japan has already promised to invest 10 trillion yen in India in the next 10 years. Prime Minister Modi hitched a ride with Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba on the bullet train earlier today. In fact, Prime Minister Modi had just completed his Japan trip and he is now in China. Of course, there's a lot happening globally, but for the significance of Prime Minister Modi's visit to China and what it would mean for India-China ties in the changing global political world order, in the political dynamics that's fast shifting globally. I am now joined by our editor-in-chief, Wasbir Hussain, live from the newsroom. Wasbir.
Hours ago, Prime Minister Modi landed in the northern Chinese port city of Tianjin. He landed at actually at the Bianhai International Airport to a very, very warm reception by not just the Chinese diplomats, but there was a large number of Indian officials apart from the Indian diaspora greeting him, apart from, of course, the Chinese greeting him. Now, this is Prime Minister Modi's visit to China after a gap of 7 years, and this has come at a time when Indo-US ties have seen a downturn in the last couple of weeks, with the United States imposing 50% tariffs on India, 25% of which is to penalize India for purchasing crude and oil from Russia. Now, in this backdrop, Prime Minister Narendra Modi arrives in the northern port city of Tianjin for the 2-day Shanghai Cooperation Organization meeting that is being attended by 20 world leaders apart from various heads of international organizations. Now, this is extremely significant. On one hand, this, as I said, this has come in the backdrop of the India's downturn, India's downslide in India's relations with the United States, with the President Trump imposing 50% tariff, as I said, 25% of which for buying crude from Russia. On the other hand, this has come after a frosty relationship that the two Asian giants themselves had, that is India and China. Now, after Galwan in 2020, this is for the first time there has been several high-level exchanges between Indian and Chinese. There has been several high-level Indian ministerial visits to China, and we saw last week the Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi coming to India, meeting the Special Representative Ajit Doval, the India's National Security Advisor, as well as the Foreign Minister, and carrying forward relations, coming into a 10 10-point consensus on improving ties. Now, while India says that everything depends on the border issue, that is the core issue, and everything depends on it. The China, on the other hand, is more flexible, saying that border issues should be kept aside and trade and other issues of interest should be taken forward too. It is in this backdrop that the President Xi Jinping of China and Prime Minister Modi, they are going to have a bilateral, and as you said, Oinitam, a trilateral between Modi, Xi Jinping, and President Putin of Russia are also likely in this on the sidelines of the SCO summit. Now, this Prime Minister Modi's visit has also drawn very warm responses or interesting responses in the Chinese media and the Chinese social media also. Now, the China Daily says that China and India can be civilizational partners, and it says that SCO summit could improve China-India relations. On its part, the Global Times, another government-run Chinese newspaper, the Global Times says that the current recovery phase of China-India ties is primarily driven by shared strategic needs. The Global Times has also said that a closer China-India ties are not only a rational choice but also a shared responsibility. Now, the Chinese official media are definitely batting there for a closer India-China ties. Oinitam.
Absolutely, Wasbir. Very interesting times, politically speaking. Globally, we are seeing a lot of developments there. You know, on one side, there's India, China, somewhere coming closer to each other. In fact, 7 years back, 2020, Galwan, we all know what happened. And now, Xi Jinping inviting Prime Minister Modi. Very interesting developments, Wasbir.
Absolutely interesting development. Nobody thought that within a span of 4 years, the relationship will become so good, if I may use the word, because
yes.
It was the Chinese, Oinitam, which came up with the overtures to start the resume direct flights between the Chinese mainland and India. That was one of the overtures that came from the Chinese. And on the Indian side, the Indians have reciprocated by granting visas to Chinese business entities, Chinese businessmen and tourists. So there is definitely, I would consider it as a thaw in the relations, although of course a lot of people would like to think that this is actually a tactical shift and not a thaw. But there is no reason to be not to be optimistic, because Prime Minister Narendra Modi has, in the recent weeks, there have been media reports that he has refused to take a phone call from President Trump 4 times in the last couple of weeks. There were 4 attempts by the American president to speak to Prime Minister Modi, and he has refused. In this backdrop, Prime Minister Modi arriving in China, having discussions, the bilateral with Xi Jinping and a trilateral between the 3 top leaders, of non-Western leaders, India, China and Russia. I think this speaks a lot about the changing political dynamic and the changing global geopolitics.
Absolutely, Wasbir. Thank you so much for those your perspective there, and we will be on that story as Prime Minister Modi goes for dinner and then his one-on-one meeting with the Chinese president.